Good morning and welcome to Industry Insights. Thanks to everybody that's joined the session this morning. My name is Gethin from ITERATE, a purpose-driven product design consultancy based here in the UK. And today I'm joined by James Hawkins, Director of Printing Portal Hub. Good morning, James.
Hi, Gethin. Morning.
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. Nice to be here.
Good. How's the morning been so far?
Yeah, very good, very good. We're getting on with our usual bits and pieces, so no change from there. But it's a nice grey day outside, so what's new?
Good stuff. Good stuff. So we've been running these industry insights sessions for more than a year now. Actually, we run them every month, and I'm always keen to start them with really understanding, more about the person and how they sort of got here. So, are you able to tell us a bit about your background, how you got into additive manufacturing and the 3D printing industry?
Yeah, sure, sure. So I don't have what would be classed as a typical background into 3D printing. In fact, I guess there's a few people like myself that aren't in that kind of industrial background. I When I left uni, I actually joined the bank in the city. So I was there for 6, 7 years, doing things that didn't really give you a sense of how do I say this? Not purpose, but there was no tangible feel and function to those parts, to what I was doing at the bank. Um,
Okay.
so I had a mate of mine after 6, 7 years, and I was like, right, well, I want to build my own business here. What do I do? And he's an industrial designer. He said 3D printing's, this is 2015, right? So it was all in the media. There was a lot of exposure um, to 3D printing, certainly more on the prototyping sphere.
Okay.
I looked at it for a couple of months and thought, yeah, this is what I want to do, and started the business in 2015, 2016.
So that's really impressive that you switched from one industry into this sector. And did it feel quite like a huge risk at that time?
Yeah, I had a lot of people telling me, "What are you doing?" But which is sound advice to a certain extent, and there was a very different, how do I say this, way of living when you change that kind of city living, moved out back into the countryside where I'm from in Kent, and spent honestly just 6 months essentially learning CAD, because I felt for for 3D printing, I really wanted to understand the data behind it, the CAD files, all that stuff. I'm certainly no designer. I'll leave that to you guys because that's a whole different kettle of fish. But being able to understand the different file types, step files, STL files, 3MF files, all the different types, and understanding the G code behind it, that was important, certainly for FDM, less so for your powder-based technologies. But it gave me a good sort of start as understanding what is it that we're delivering here.
Mm. So what was the very first step then? Did you set up a website and start outsourcing to other businesses, or did you buy a machine and kind of start touting the service? What was the very first step into
That's
setting
right.
up a printing portal hub?
Well, it's interesting, right? So I had was invested in the Form One Plus, which
Okay,
was back then.
SLA.
It was a Kickstarter. Yeah, did an SLA thing back as first intro into 3D printing, and after that Form One Plus, we got 5 Form 2s. But yeah, setting up the
Okay.
website was fairly easy. I sort of did a whole thing on WordPress, built that out. Really, back then there was a bit of an advantage because you had what was 3D hubs, or hubs,
Yeah.
3D hubs, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
And for us, that was a really nice intro because what we were doing is, but back then, hubs had a platform whereby we'd interact directly with the customer. So you had someone say, "Hey, here's some files. I would like it done this way," and
Hmm.
with the knowledge you'd built up, or whoever is as a partner for hubs at the time, you would say, "Well, this is the technology I have. You might want to look at this one, SLA, FDM, powder based, if it's more of a functional prototype."
Yeah.
So it was a really, really nice way to start because you actually had interaction with plenty of different customers, and
Okay.
understood their needs.
Okay. So, and so 3D Hubs doesn't exist anymore. So while that sounds as if that was a really good lead into the industry, how's how's that affected you, and how's that sort of transition? Because I'm aware that there's a few other platforms. Do you leverage those, or do you go
Yeah.
direct to the consumer now?
So we're by and large with direct, right? So those are the formative years. I'd say the first year or two was a lot of business coming from there. Not only the only business we did, but a lot of the business was generated from those platforms, which was great. But around 2017, 2018, that changed. We're far more direct.
Okay.
And we were in London at the time. We were in Farringdon, and we're doing quite a lot with a shoe company back then.
Okay.
We moved out into the sticks in 2018, and in 2019 we took plunge and bought, I believe it's the first MJF 4210 or 4200 as it was back then, as a service bureau. So we took that plunge, and that was off the back of doing some tests with an automotive firm. They liked it so much, we ended up doing a big functional prototype run with them, and it was enough for us to buy a second machine within 6 months, just
Wow.
before just before everything closed down for COVID.
Oh,
Yeah.
so, when you originally set the business up, I mean, it's because I read in the research that you 2015 that you were established. So what, 11 years ago? Has it gone as you expected? Have you kind of managed to fulfill the vision in the way that you'd originally anticipated?
So, well, great question. I think like, and almost one back at you, Gethin. Like when you start a business, you've always got these lofty aspirations, right, in terms of what you're going to do and what you're going to achieve. So yeah, it's never the trajectory is never what you expect, but but everything you've learned along the way. I mean, I look back at what I've learned in the last 10 years. I mean, it's a completely different industry that I've got into, but there is a wealth of knowledge, not just with myself, but with the team. And the question there is more, I think, geared up to what has changed in the industry, and it has. And the hype of 2015 was ridiculous, and it wasn't really warranted. Coming down the pike and into today's world, sort of it's that changeover for us, certainly in 2019, 2020, into 2025, 26, everything has gone from that kind of prototyping step towards this production run that we do now. I mean, as I say, it's flipped, right? So back then we'd be doing 90% to 10% prototyping production. It's completely the other way around now. So it's 90% production, 10% prototyping, and a lot of that is to do with the technology that's come out. So lots of changes. SLS has been around for a while. So is resin with your photopolymers and your SLA. And now you obviously have projectors playing a bigger part on the resin front. They're getting faster and faster, and FDM, of course, we can't neglect FDM. I
Mm,
mean, I would advise, even though I'm a service bureau provider, right? I would advise every design company up and down the country to have I was going to say a particular brand there, probably shouldn't, but a certain brand of FDM desktop printer, because they're great. I mean, you get that instant feedback with almost a production grade part. Well, in certain cases they are production grade, and a whole wealth of materials. So it's the landscape's changed, and certainly for us, we've changed with it. And I think when it comes to service bureaus, it's not about buying the latest and greatest machines. Of course that always helps to deliver to the customer. Having that kind of uh a range of offering is important, and capacity is important, but it's actually all the processes that you've learned along the way to control your quality control, documentation, track and traceability, the maintenance guys, so having them trained to maintain, to repair our own machines.
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that helps you be quicker, more nimble, and ultimately and end up offering a better product to the customer.
Interesting. Because that what you're saying there sort of makes me reflect on the design side of that kind of supply chain, if you like. And so, I think that lots of designers, maybe lots of younger designers, assume that when you're designing for 3D printing that it's that there is definitely more design freedom, but it's perceived that it's actually easier than designing for mass manufacture or injection molding. But the knowledge that we've built up here in terms of when we're designing products for additive, there's lots of decisions that need to be made, in terms of which process is right for the product, which material is right for the product. And then when you get down to designing it, wall section thickness, fits, tolerances, all of this sort of stuff has to be considered in the same way that you would be designing a product for injection molding or any other mass manufacturing process. So I think that there has that you're right there. It's that knowledge that goes into it that really provides value.
It's a really interesting point. And that's a question back to you, Gethin. So have you seen, I mean, we've noticed it ourselves over the last 10 years, how parts designed are typically still designed for injection molding. They've never really been designed for additive. Are you now finding there's really differences in those two methodologies for the end production run?
Yeah, absolutely. But there's a thought process, So I would say that some clients come to us and they want to use additive as the final production process, and they know that it's not going to move any further beyond that. And the reasons often are they want to benefit from the design freedom of additive, and in some cases, the technology is evolving so quickly inside the product that they're actually putting into the market that they can't commit to tooling. And so they always know that for their product, their volumes and the market that they're operating in, additive is the right solution for them. We're seeing more and more of those. But there is an element of we're using additive as a means to an end. So we know that injection molding is going to be the end point for this product. But for the first 5,000 or 10,000 units, we're going to use additive as the intermediary. Now, you have to be careful, because I think, as you're suggesting there, it's not always appropriate to just 3D print parts that's been designed for injection molding. You have to specifically design it for your additive process. And so there is a transition, because then when that product reaches a volume that they say, right, we want to move into injection molding, then you have to design it for that process, but you kind of don't want to entirely overhaul the product. So I think that you have to have a view on what's the short term or the long term play. So you have to be very strategic about how you select each of the process and how the design needs to adapt for each part of where you're at based on the volume. That's the approach that we take.
Yeah, no, it's smart. I mean, I can see the challenges for design bureaus, because you do have to. There's so much consultation, right? I mean, we see it with ourselves. We do 3D scanning, and we have reverse engineering capabilities as well. So we have to say to people, look, we can do this for you, but you need to go to a design consultant to optimize, whether that's for 3D printing or whether that's for CNC or injection molding. There's differences in that design technique.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so I think what we haven't sort of talked about, and it's really important to be clear in terms of what services do you offer? What machines have you got there at Printing Portal?
Sure. Yeah. No. Good question. So, we run 5 multi-jet fusion machines at the moment here in the UK.
Okay.
We have 4 post-processors with that technology. So what that allows us to do is offer lots of different materials. At the moment, we're running PA12, PA11, and TPU. So that's your kind of core multi-jet fusion offering. It's covering from a hard plastic, very versatile plastic, over to a softer but more durable TPU material. The thicker you print that out, it gets pretty tough, to be honest with you. But actually, the thinner you print it, it's pretty flexible. So that's the core materials on the MJF. We obviously have our finishing. So we finish using the sort of industrial machines, post-processing machines. We've got DM60 that dyes black and various other colors. But honestly, it's pretty much always black. It's like the model, was it the Model T, whatever it is. It's you can have yeah, that's it. Any color as long as it's black. Because it's just you have to wash out the machine before you change colors, and it's not it's not often used as a different color dyeing machine. We have the vapor smoothing machine, so that from AMT, that's really useful for parts like we do a lot in the OMP, for example, OMP industry, so orthotics and prosthetics. So for our TPU material, it's quite grainy. So if a user was to have that on their skin, even though it has the certs to be used in the skin, it's just a little bit uncomfortable. So running it through both the dye and the vapor smoothing process allows our parts to actually be used as a functional end use part for human wearables, and that's kind of a critical step, right? That additional post processing feature. Beyond that, and I can go into that in more detail. Beyond that, we have vibro polishing, and we have a full spray booth. So we have a couple of guys who they'll sand down the parts, fill a primer, build them all the way back up into a paint job with a lacquer on top to help protect it. So that's typically done for the parts behind me. So the covers for the arms. And it for us, it means that you've almost got a straight through process, right? So it's not a one-stop shop because you'd have to go to design company, as I say. But for us, we can 3D scan, we can reverse engineer. If you get it optimized with a designer, it can come back to us. We can 3D print, we can finish it in a whole host of ways, and then do some assembly as well. So in the orthotic space, we do assemblies with EVA tops and glue. So that's where we're seeing some growth for us. So it's a case of, well, look, we're not just a service bureau. We're leaning towards the contract manufacturer where someone goes, right, I want to 3D print production parts, right? But that's only part of the journey. You've got to actually do some assembly. You've got to do some after production parts to make the final products for the customer. So it's bringing that all together, and I think we're going to see more of that in the industry, where someone like yourself will come to a bureau or a contract manufacturer, and not only do they have the expertise in the 3D printing, but they're blending that with traditional fabrication methods.
Yeah, interesting. Because one of the things that I've been thinking about a fair amount lately is there a tipping point, where additive manufacturing really just sort of takes over or dominates the manufacturing landscape, and that is there going to be a time where injection molding and sort of more traditional processes are not actually going to make up the majority of the market? Because I think that historically it's been finishes and materials that have limited additive, but the last few years that's really accelerated, and the trajectory is that it's only going to get better. And so, do you think we're likely to see a transition where more products are manufactured using these processes by comparison?
Really, I'd love to say yes, but I can't. But really, it's just a case of pushing out that curve, right? Because as everyone knows, you've got sometimes a hefty setup cost for injection molding. You're doing your tooling, so you've already got that first bit of cost there. But then your parts per unit are very much smaller. Additive manufacturing doesn't have any of that setup cost, so off the bat, it's great to produce smaller numbers. But what's happening is that curve, that sort of the additive manufacturing curve, which gets quite steep, is getting pushed out further and further. And what it's meaning is more parts are ending up being additive manufactured as opposed to injection molded, because we're doing what we can, where we're getting better at what we do. Our supply chains are becoming more embedded, and the overall growth of the additive manufacturing industry has led to economies of scale and basically cost reduction. That's enabling us to offer better price points and more attractive proposals to people who want to use additive. I honestly, injection molding is great. I think it's amazing. It's so smart. And it's silly to never have that as part of your product mix in my mind, but the way that it will change is people will be thinking more of in terms of the same part. Once you've really firmly bedded down a design and you're going to do 10,000, 50,000 runs, that's where you might think, right, let's tool up. But that curve has always been pushed out. I mean, it used to be something like 1,000 runs, and then you'd tool up. But now people are happily 3D printing up to tens of thousands. So
So how about supply chain resilience? Because I think COVID we taught us that for some products we just have to make in the UK, and we saw that certainly with the medical sector. But there's a lot of turbulence in the world with tariffs and a lot of unrest and these sorts of things. Do you see people now featuring that in their decision making, whereby they're saying, well, yeah, okay, we'd rather make it down the road if we can, or keep it in the UK at the very least?
I think so. Yeah, shorter supply chains. I mean, it makes sense, right? Not just from a logistical point of view, but also from a sustainable point of view. A lot of the shoe companies I speak to, and there's some really great guys out there. Certainly UK cobblers, should we call them? They really they're switched on with sustainability, and their concept is we want to be able to produce locally and ship locally, as opposed to making everything in the Far East. Huge scrappage, and then off that, up to 90% in that industry, and then obviously going into landfill afterwards. So I think the kind of supply chain logistics is also entwined with sustainability. For us, we're actually setting up shop in the US this year, so having a presence locally is important. Tariffs do play a part in that, but I think just having just being able to supply your customers from a local position is very attractive.
Okay, so just in terms of so we've got five minutes left, but in terms of trends, what are you seeing in the industry? Is there anything happening in particular sectors that are gaining traction, or what's exciting you there?
Sure, yeah, interesting. So obviously we're MJF predominantly. We have large format FDM machines. I probably should have spoken to you about that, and a bank of 20 FDM machines, and they are great. But for us, we're very much focused on OMP. Probably see that from some of the stuff behind me here, and honestly, I think that's gonna really change in the next couple of years. So orthotics and prosthetics and just medical as a whole. Technologies are being certified, so the 3D printing technologies are now being accustomed and being embedded in medical supply chains, and they're getting the certifications to sign them off. So that'll open a whole load of additional doors as well, because regulations are always going to play a part into how deep technology penetrates a market. Also, you can't neglect how drones are suddenly coming into the marketplace. It's huge. Those guys are able to do iterative design, so to speak, and they can. It's not just chucking small parts out anymore. We're talking designing on the fly, improving all the time, but then also doing it at a scale. So HP just did a webinar on drones in particular, and it's amazing how much throughput you can get through when you design correctly. If you've got a well-designed drone, wow, you can really pack a lot of parts into a build. So
interesting.
Yeah. So those two in particular.
Okay. How about AI?
AI,
how's that featuring in what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love AI, and it's a big push. So it's something I've spoken to the team about here, we built our own company workspace off the back of using LLMs, but also the coding platforms as well. So it's basically talking to a coding platform and building you the site. We understand it's not as slick as a true coder, so a developer who can do this stuff. Dan, we understand that, but as long as we ensure that the site for us is secure, and that's a big thing for us, is making sure all the data is secure. And it actually does the job that we need it to do, then we're going to use it. So for ages, I've wanted to be able to check, for example, where our parts are in real time in the factory. So obviously we use a Kanban system. It's very important. We need to see where all our parts are. We've enabled ourselves through AI to build a digital Kanban. So it's talking from our production module where everyone orders online. So we have an online portal where they can upload their parts, they can get their prices automatically, they can pay. That as soon as it's been paid for, that goes into a production module. We take it out of the production module, we bring it into our own company workspace where we can get the guys on the factory floor to move the cards from one process to the next. What that's enabling us to do is see where the bottlenecks are, right? So now before you had a physical card and you can just move it from one place to the next. Great. It's a really great tool. It tells us where parts are on the facility. And if the guys in the office say something needs to go out at a certain point, they'll check that Kanban. What we're able to do now is we're able to see where cards are stacking up where orders are stacking up in a certain part of the production chain. Say if they're stuck in dyeing, say if they're stuck in vapor smoothing, or it shows us our bottlenecks, and we can use that as part of our KPIs to go, right, well, we need to improve this because we've got a lot of parts stuck here. And through AI, we're asking, like, what else can we improve here? And it's taking data sets out like, okay, well, you have 20 cards or 30 cards stuck in this process at one point as opposed to 10 cards. There's obviously a bit of an issue there. So there's a lot we can do with improving our process. And I think that comes back to what I said at the start of the call, which is, bureaus, you can buy machinery, right? And you can get a CAD package for design, but unless you actually know what you're doing and improving, like you're doing continuous improvement, you're never going to really offer anything more than than anyone else can. So it becomes more of a commodity, whereas this isn't a commodity. We're building something which has value. So AI, I could talk all day. I could talk for another half an hour. It's been amazing. It's been a revelation for us.
It just feels like we're getting into the conversation and we're touching the tip of the iceberg, but we are up to the half an hour. So that's really insightful, James. Thanks very much for your time. So we'll, as I mentioned earlier, we'll share this discussion or snippets of the discussion on our LinkedIn page, Instagram, and also put the whole broadcast on YouTube. And presumably, if people are interested in commissioning Printing Portal or they've got any questions, are you happy for them to reach out if we tag you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely, yeah. Ask away, yeah. And thanks very much for having me, Gethin. It's been I like to talk about it, so it's been great being here.
Me too. Brilliant. Thanks, James. So end of next month, we just need to confirm the date, but we've got James Priest from Biophase is coming back on Industry Insights. So we're looking forward to welcoming James Priest next month. But yeah, James, thanks again, and really good to talk to you.
No worries, mate. All the best. Cheers.
Bye. Cheers. Take care. Thank you.